There's a third criteria for Pareto efficiency, and this one is called output efficiency. Now, this one is a little different from exchange efficiency or input efficiency. Those two involved essentially the exact same argument. We created this Edgeworth box by taking the same curves, flipping one of them, and then showing that they're you need to have tangency points between the isoquants or the indifference curves. This is also going to be about tangency, but it's going to be between two different kinds of curves, okay? So let's get this guy out of here. We're going to use, for this two curves, the production possibilities frontier. Remember, this is going to be over, say, food and shelter, and we've got a curve that highlights the possible combinations that are available to the economy. Anything inside this line is inefficient because you could have more of one or the other or both without giving up the other. Anything out here is impossible given the resource base of the economy. Anything on the line is efficient. We're using our resources in a Pareto efficient way. If we wanted to have more food, we'd have to give up a little bit of shelter, and if we wanted more shelter, we'd have to give up a little bit of food. So the slope of this thing is important. It's called the marginal rate of transformation. We're going to add to this people's preferences over food and shelter. Okay, so here's, say, Alice. This is her preferences, and we might say they look something like this. Okay, these are her indifference curves. What we're going to do is we're going to take one of her indifference curves and we're going to put it over top the production possibilities frontier, and we're going to make a simple argument that to achieve output efficiency, which is the last criteria, we need the slope of these two things to be equal. The marginal rate of transformation has to equal the marginal rate of substitution. So remember this, the slope is the marginal rate of substitution, because these are indifference curves. So why is that the case? Well, we can kind of see this reasonably easy if we move this guy over here. So let's say it's here, and let's just pretend that they're not the same. So this is the slope, and suppose that the economy is at this point right here. So at this point, the marginal rate of transformation does not equal the marginal rate of substitution. You can see that the slope of the PPF is really steep, and the slope of the marginal rate of the indifference curve is really shallow. Okay, so why is that not efficient? Well, we can have an improvement without giving anything up. That means it's inefficient. What are we going to do in this case? Well, remember the PPF, the production possibilities frontier, is the set of all possibilities that this economy has that are efficient, and the marginal rate of transformation says if you give up 1 unit of food, I can use the resources that are freed up to produce this much extra shelter. Okay? Meanwhile, the marginal rate of substitution says if I'm Alice and I give up 1 unit of food, here's how much extra shelter I need to attain the same utility. But if these are not equal, then Alice should do this. She should say, look, I'm going to give up a unit of food. Economy, you go use the labor and capital that was previously used to make that food and instead go make shelter with it. The amount of extra shelter the economy is able to produce, if it uses its resources efficiently, we would go up here. And you can see that basically this is way more shelter that we're able to produce than would be necessary to make Alice indifferent. Okay, so she's going to be able to attain a higher indifference curve that goes through this point by giving up a bit of food and getting the extra shelter that the economy can make. All right. Conversely, let's suppose that the economy has moved to this point here. It wouldn't actually move there. She would want to go again. If the economy eventually, at this point, maybe Alice does the same thing and she gives it up and we end up here, once we're here, you can see that there's no more scope for anybody to gain without losing, all right? So now if Alice tries to do the same thing, she gives up a little bit of food. The amount of extra shelter the economy makes is just enough to offset her loss, so she's indifferent. She can't be better off. And in fact, if she tried to give up 2 units of food, we'd start to see that she's worse off, okay? So that's the basic idea behind output efficiency. We need the marginal rate of transformation, the slope of the production possibilities frontier, to equal the marginal rate of substitution. And notice I said it was equal to the marginal rate of substitution of Alice, but exchange efficiency says that her marginal rate of substitution is going to be equal to Bob's and everybody else in the economies, which means that if output efficiency is satisfied for one person and exchange efficiency is satisfied, then it's also going to be the case that every single person in this economy is in the same position as Alice, where there's no way that they can give up a little bit of food or give up a little bit of shelter and be made better off.